Before we begin this incredible journey through ancient Norse lands, please take a moment to like this video if you enjoy epic Viking tales. Subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories from the north and comment below telling us where in the world you're watching from. Your support means everything to us. Now let's dive into this legendary tale. The morning mist clung to the rocky shores of our settlement like the breath of sleeping giants. Thorvald the Steadfast stood at the edge of our village, watching the sun struggle through grey clouds that promised another harsh day in these northern lands. The salt air carried whispers of approaching winter, and with it, the inevitable raids that would test our strength once more. My weathered hands gripped the wooden rail of our longhouse porch as I watched the daily preparations unfold below. Children ran between the adults, their laughter a stark contrast to the serious faces of warriors sharpening blades and mending mail. Women worked tirelessly preparing provisions, their skilled hands weaving, cooking, and crafting the necessities that would see us through the coming trials. The ships approached from the eastern waters, called out Gunther, our most trusted scout, his breath forming small clouds in the crisp air. His weathered face bore the marks of countless seasons spent watching our borders, and his eyes held a gravity that made my stomach tighten with anticipation. I descended the wooden steps, my boots echoing against the worn planks as I made my way toward the gathering crowd. The sound of our war horn echoed across the settlement, its deep, resonant call summoning every able-bodied defender to the central meeting ground. The familiar weight of my sword at my side provided little comfort as I contemplated what lay ahead. "How many vessels?" I asked Gunther, placing a firm hand on his shoulder as we walked toward the others. "3 longships, flying banners I do not recognize. They move with purpose, not the lazy drift of traders." His voice carried the certainty of a man who had witnessed too many such approaches over the years. The crowd that gathered around us consisted of faces I had known since childhood, farmers turned fighters, craftsmen who could wield axes with deadly precision, and mothers whose fierce protectiveness rivaled that of any berserker. Among them stood Astrid, the most skilled shieldmaiden our clan had ever produced. Astrid's presence commanded attention without effort. Her auburn hair, braided with leather cords and silver rings earned through countless victories, caught what little sunlight managed to penetrate the overcast sky. Her green eyes held the wisdom of someone who had faced death numerous times and emerged stronger, while her stance spoke of readiness that came from years of rigorous training. "These strangers seek to test our resolve," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the assembled group. "Let them come and learn why our ancestors chose this land to call home." The confidence in her tone inspired those around us, but I could see the subtle tension in her shoulders, the way her hand unconsciously checked the position of her weapons. Even the most experienced warriors felt the weight of uncertainty before battle. As our leader, Olaf Ironhand, addressed the crowd with strategies and assignments, I found my gaze repeatedly drawn to Astrid. We had grown up together in this harsh but beautiful land, sharing the struggles and triumphs that forged unbreakable bonds between clan members. Over the years, what began as childhood friendship had deepened into something neither of us had spoken aloud, though it lived in the glances we shared and the way we instinctively moved to protect each other in combat. "Thorvald," Olaf's commanding voice pulled me from my thoughts. "You and Astrid will take the left flank when they make landfall. Your coordination in previous battles has proven invaluable." I nodded, meeting Astrid's eyes across the circle. The slight smile that played at the corners of her mouth told me she welcomed the assignment, though we both understood the dangers it would bring. The hours that followed passed in a blur of preparation. We checked and double-checked our equipment, ensuring every strap was secure, every blade sharp enough to split hair. The familiar ritual provided comfort in its routine, each step bringing us closer to the moment when steel would meet steel and courage would be tested once again. As the sun reached its highest point, casting harsh shadows across our defensive positions, the enemy ships appeared on the horizon. They moved with the confident swagger of raiders who expected easy victory, their colorful sails billowing proudly in the offshore breeze. "They underestimate us," Astrid observed, crouching beside me behind the stone fortifications we had hastily erected along the beach. Her breathing was steady, controlled, the mark of someone who had learned to manage fear through experience. "Their mistake will cost them dearly," I replied, though my own heart hammered against my ribs like a caged bird seeking freedom. The landing boats carved through the surf with practiced efficiency, their occupants already brandishing weapons and shouting challenges in a dialect that sounded familiar yet foreign. These were northern men like ourselves, but from a clan whose hunger for conquest had driven them far from their own shores. The first clash came with the sound of metal against metal, wood splintering under the force of determined blows, and the shouts of warriors testing their strength against worthy opponents. Astrid moved beside me with the fluid grace of someone born to combat, her shieldwork protecting us both, while her sword found gaps in enemy defenses with deadly precision. For what felt like hours, we held our ground against wave after wave of attackers. The rocky beach became treacherous with spilled blood and the bodies of fallen warriors from both sides. My muscles burned from the constant strain of combat, and sweat stung my eyes despite the cool air. Then, in a moment that would haunt my dreams for years to come, everything changed. An enemy warrior, larger than the others and wielding a massive two-handed axe, broke through our defensive line with the fury of a berserker. His wild eyes locked onto Astrid, perhaps recognizing her as a leader whose fall would demoralize our forces. With a roar that seemed to shake the very stones beneath our feet, he charged directly toward her position. Astrid saw him coming and adjusted her stance, preparing to meet his assault with the skill that had kept her alive through countless battles. But as she pivoted to face this new threat, another enemy fighter struck from her blind side, his blade finding the small gap between her mail shirt and leather belt. The sound she made, not quite a scream, more like the sharp intake of breath that comes with unexpected pain, cut through the chaos of battle like nothing else could have. I watched in horror as she stumbled, her hand moving instinctively to the wound, while her face went pale with shock. "Astrid!" My voice cracked as I fought desperately to reach her, cutting down two warriors who stood between us while the world seemed to slow around me. She managed to kill the man who had wounded her, her training taking over even as her strength began to fail. But the berserker was still coming, his massive axe raised high above his head, ready to deliver a blow that would end her life in an instant. Time stretched impossibly thin as I realized with crystal clarity that I would not reach her in time. The distance that separated us might as well have been an ocean, and the enemy warriors between us fought with desperate determination to prevent my advance. Astrid looked up at me then, her green eyes meeting mine across the chaos of battle. In that moment, I saw not the fierce Shieldmaiden who had never shown weakness, but the frightened young woman who knew her death was seconds away. "Spare me, please," she whispered, though somehow I heard her words as clearly as if she had shouted them. The vulnerability in her voice, so different from her usual confident tone, shattered something inside my chest. Without thinking, without planning, I did something I had never done before in all my years of warfare. I called upon the gods themselves, specifically the goddess Freyja, protector of warriors and guardian of the fallen. "Great Freyja!" I shouted, my voice carrying over the sounds of battle with supernatural clarity. "I beg you to save her. Take anything you want in return, but do not let her die here." The world around us seemed to pause, as if the very air held its breath. Even the berserker hesitated mid-swing, his eyes widening with something that might have been fear or awe. Then she appeared. Freyja manifested not as the ethereal vision of poems and stories, but as a presence that filled every fiber of my being with certainty of her reality. Her beauty was terrible and magnificent, like looking directly into the heart of a star. Golden hair flowed around her like liquid sunlight, and her eyes held the wisdom of ages past and futures yet to come. "You call upon me, mortal warrior." Her voice resonated not just in my ears, but in my very soul. "You would bargain with a goddess to save one life?" Yes, I replied, without hesitation, though speaking to a divine being should have struck me speechless with terror. Whatever price you demand, I will pay it. Freyja's gaze shifted to Astrid, who lay bleeding on the rocky ground, her life flowing away with each heartbeat. The berserker remained frozen mid-strike, held motionless by divine power that made the very air shimmer around us. She is brave, this one, Freyja mused, her voice carrying notes of approval. A true daughter of the North, unafraid to face death in defense of her people. Then you will save her? Hope and desperation warred in my chest as I waited for her answer. The goddess turned her terrible, beautiful gaze back to me, and I felt as though she could see every secret I had ever kept, every fear I had ever harbored, every dream I had ever cherished. I can preserve her life, Freyja said slowly, but the price will be higher than you imagine. To save her from death's embrace, another must take her place in that cold realm. Are you prepared to die so that she might live? The question should have terrified me, should have made me reconsider my desperate plea. Instead, I felt a calm certainty settle over me like a warm cloak on a winter night. Looking at Astrid, seeing the way her breathing grew more labored with each passing second, I knew there was only one answer I could give. Yes, I said, my voice steady and sure. Let me die in her place. Freyja nodded slowly, something that might have been respect flickering in her divine eyes. You love her. It was not a question, but I answered anyway. More than my own life. Very well, the goddess declared, raising one perfect hand toward the frozen tableau of battle around us. The bargain is struck. Her wounds shall heal, her strength shall return, and she shall live to see many more sunsets. But you, Torvald the Steadfast, shall pay the ultimate price for this gift. Divine light erupted from Freyja's outstretched hand, washing over the battlefield in waves that seemed to cleanse away pain and fear. I felt a strange warmth spreading through my chest, not unpleasant, but carrying with it the certainty of approaching endings. As the light faded and the goddess began to fade from view, I heard her final words. Love such as yours does not go unrewarded, though the reward may not come in the form you expect. The first thing I noticed was the silence. No clash of weapons, no shouts of warriors, no dying gasps of the wounded, just an overwhelming quiet that seemed to press against my ears like deep water. I opened my eyes, expecting to find myself in the halls of the honored dead, perhaps standing before the great tables where fallen warriors feast for eternity. Instead, I found myself lying on the same rocky beach where I had made my bargain with Freyja, but everything had changed. The enemy raiders were gone, not fled but simply absent, as if they had never existed at all. Our own warriors stood around me in a wide circle, their faces pale with shock and something that looked uncomfortably like fear. The sun hung in exactly the same position it had occupied during the battle, yet the quality of light seemed different, more golden, more alive. Torvald! Astrid's voice came from somewhere to my right, trembling with uncertainty and relief. Torvald, are you? I turned my head toward her voice and felt my breath catch in my throat. She knelt beside me, completely healed, her skin unmarked by the wounds that should have killed her. Her green eyes were wide with confusion and something else, a deep, abiding sorrow that made my chest tighten with concern. You were dead, she whispered, her hand hovering over my chest as if afraid to touch me. I saw you die. I felt your heart stop beating under my hands, but now... I sat up slowly, expecting to feel the weakness that should accompany resurrection, the disorientation that surely must follow a journey to the realm of the dead and back. Instead, I felt stronger than I had ever felt before, more vital, as if every fiber of my being hummed with barely contained energy. I remember making the bargain, I said, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. Freyja agreed to save you, and I was supposed to die in your place. Astrid's face crumpled then, tears streaming down her cheeks as she finally reached out to touch my face, her fingers tracing my features as if to convince herself I was truly there. But you did die, she sobbed. Your body grew cold. Your breathing stopped. I held you while the light faded from your eyes, and I begged the gods to take me instead. Then suddenly, impossibly, you drew breath again. The circle of warriors around us shifted uncomfortably, their eyes moving between us and the sky above, as if expecting divine retribution to rain down at any moment. I could understand their unease. Resurrection was the stuff of legends and myths, not something that happened on ordinary battlefields to ordinary people. Gunther, our elder scout, stepped forward from the crowd, his weathered face grave with concern. "Torvald, lad," he said carefully, "something has changed about you. Can you feel it?" Now that he mentioned it, I could sense a difference, though it was difficult to put into words. It was as if I could feel the very life force flowing through my veins, stronger and more vibrant than any mortal's should be. When I focused on my breathing, each inhalation seemed to bring not just air, but something more essential, more pure. "What do you mean?" I asked, though part of me already suspected the answer. "Your wounds," Astrid said softly, her fingers tracing lines on my arms where cuts from the battle should have left marks. "They're all gone. Not healed, gone, as if they never existed." I looked down at myself and saw that she was right. My mail shirt bore the tears and stains from combat, but underneath my skin was unmarked. More than that, old scars from childhood accidents and previous battles had vanished entirely, leaving behind only smooth, unblemished flesh. "And your eyes," Gunther added, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're different now, brighter, like they hold starlight." Before I could respond to this observation, a familiar voice echoed across the beach, though its owner was nowhere to be seen. "Surprised, are you?" Freyja's laughter carried on the wind like the sound of distant bells. "Did you think the gods make bargains without considering all possibilities?" I stood quickly, helping Astrid to her feet as we both scanned the area for any sign of the goddess's presence. The other warriors backed away further, many making protective signs with their hands. "You saved her as promised," I called out to the empty air. "Why am I still alive?" "Because," Freyja's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, "your willingness to sacrifice everything for love proved you worthy of a different kind of gift. You both shall live, but not as mortals live." A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the northern wind. "What do you mean? You have been blessed or cursed, depending on your perspective, with life eternal. Neither of you shall know death by blade or age, by disease or accident. You shall walk this world until the end of days, bound together by the love that moved you to such sacrifice." Astrid's hand found mine, her fingers interlacing with my own as the full weight of the goddess's words settled over us. Around us, our fellow clan members began to murmur among themselves, their voices carrying notes of awe and fear in equal measure. "But why?" Astrid asked, her voice stronger now, though I could feel the trembling in her hand. "What purpose does such a gift serve? Love like yours is rare among mortals," Freyja replied, her voice growing fainter, as if she were moving away from our world even as she spoke. "It deserves to be preserved, to serve as an example to future generations. You shall bear witness to the rise and fall of kingdoms, the birth and death of countless souls, and through it all you shall remember what it means to love without reservation." The implications of her words began to sink in slowly, like cold water seeping through wool. We would live forever, yes, but we would also watch everyone we cared about grow old and die. We would see our clan, our culture, perhaps our entire way of life fade into memory and legend. "Is there no way to undo this?" I asked, though I wasn't sure if I truly wanted an answer. Freyja's laughter came one final time, sadder now, tinged with something that might have been pity. "The threads of fate, once woven, cannot be easily unraveled. But remember this, every curse carries within it the seeds of its own blessing, and every blessing the potential for curse. How you choose to live these endless days will determine which yours becomes." With that, her presence faded entirely, leaving us alone on the beach with the weight of eternity pressing down upon our shoulders. The days that followed were among the strangest of my existence. Our clan accepted us back into the fold, but there was an undeniable distance now, a sense that we had become something other than fully human. Children would stare at us with wide eyes when they thought we weren't looking, and conversations would quiet when we approached. Astrid handled the transition with the same strength she brought to every challenge, though I sometimes caught her staring out at the horizon with an expression of profound loneliness. We talked long into the nights about what our future might hold, trying to make sense of a gift that felt increasingly like a burden. "Do you regret it?" she asked me one evening as we sat together on the cliffs overlooking the sea. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, beautiful and eternal like us. I considered her question carefully before answering. "I regret that we must carry this burden," I said finally, "but I could never regret saving your life. If given the choice again, I would make the same decision." She leaned against my shoulder, her warmth a comfort in the cooling air. "Even knowing what it would cost us?" Even then. As the months passed, we began to notice other changes beyond our apparent immortality. We healed from injuries at an impossible rate, cuts closing within minutes, broken bones mending in hours. We needed less food, less sleep, less of everything that sustained normal human life. Most disturbing of all, we found that we could sense death approaching others long before it arrived. A grey pallor would settle over someone days or weeks before they would succumb to illness or accident, visible only to our changed eyes. We learned to hide this knowledge, for what kindness was there in telling a person their time was drawing to an end? The first winter of our new existence brought with it the greatest test of all. An epidemic swept through our settlement, claiming the lives of many we held dear. We watched helplessly as friends and family members sickened and died, while we remained untouched by the plague that ravaged our community. Olaf Ironhand was among those claimed by the sickness, and with his passing, the leadership of our clan fell to his eldest son, a young man named Eric, who viewed us with barely concealed suspicion. "You bring death with you," he accused one grey morning as we stood over Olaf's funeral pyre. "First, the battle that killed no one but should have claimed you both. Now this plague that takes everyone except you." His words stung because they held a grain of terrible truth. Were we somehow responsible for the misfortunes that had befallen our people? Did our unnatural existence upset some cosmic balance that demanded payment in the lives of others? "We have done nothing but try to serve our clan faithfully," Astrid replied, her voice steady despite the accusation. "If you wish us to leave, we will go." Eric's eyes narrowed as he considered her offer. Around us, the other survivors watched silently, their faces revealing the same mixture of fear and suspicion that had colored their interactions with us for months. "Perhaps that would be best," he said finally, "for all our sakes." The pain of exile cut deeper than any physical wound we had ever endured. To be cast out by our own people, the community we had fought and bled to protect, felt like a betrayal that no amount of time would heal. We gathered our few belongings and made our farewells to those brave enough to speak with us. As we walked away from the only home we had ever known, Astrid reached for my hand. "Where shall we go?" she asked. I looked back once at the settlement that had shaped our mortal lives, then turned my face toward the unknown horizon that stretched endlessly before us. "Wherever the wind takes us," I replied. "We have all the time in the world to find our place." Centuries have passed since that fateful day on the beach when love proved stronger than death itself. We have wandered through ages of ice and fire, witnessed the rise of great kingdoms and the fall of mighty empires. We have walked among Vikings and Romans, Celts and Saxons, always strangers, always together. The world has changed beyond recognition, but human nature remains constant. In every generation, we find those same qualities that moved the gods so long ago: love, sacrifice, courage in the face of impossible odds. We have learned that Freyja spoke truly when she said every curse carries within it a blessing. Our blessing is that we remember. We carry the stories of those who came before, keeping alive the memory of heroes whose names would otherwise be lost to time. We are witnesses to the endless capacity of the human heart for both darkness and light. And in the quiet moments between one age and the next, when the world pauses to catch its breath before rushing headlong into whatever comes next, we find peace in knowing that some things, like the love that saved us both, truly are eternal. The saga continues, as all the best stories do, not with an ending but with the promise of new beginnings yet to come. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through ancient Norse lands. If this tale of eternal love and sacrifice moved you, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe for more epic stories from the North, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love connecting with our global community of mythology enthusiasts. Until next time, may your own adventures be worthy of legend.